Now America, this God-blessed land, is a land of Jacob and Esau and a mixture of the other nations. America is a mixture of people. And Australia's the same too, by the way. You might say America's Babylon. Well, come over to Australia. Same. We've got the same thing over there. Shopping malls in every creed and nation under the sun. In America, unlike Australia, the founders were, or the settlers were Puritans and Freemasons, Bible believers and pagans, Jekyll and Hyde, Jacob and Esau. And if the lost tribes are awakening, so is Esau. We have the New World Order sort of guys that want to have dominion over us. And they won't prevail, but they're going to do some damage. And this is part of God's judgment. And not all of Esau is bad, by the way. You know, I might be descended from Israel and be a wicked man. And I might be a descendant of Esau and be a good man. So God knows people's hearts. So this is not about racism or anything like that. But there is an antagonism between Esau and Jacob. So America has a Jekyll and Hyde nature, as does Australia as well. There are forces of good and evil within the same nation. Esau must be close to Jacob in order to serve him. Remember the blessings. If we read them here. Jacob, Genesis 27:28. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. And in Genesis 27:39, to Esau, Isaac his father said, and Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be in the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. It's similar, it's not the same, but the two sons are related. So when the lost tribes were in Europe, Esau was there too, amongst other nations. And when Jacob comes out of Europe and comes to America, Esau is there with him. Again, some of Esau get saved. So this is, and we're going to see this in a later verse, that God has a plan for a remnant of Edom, of Esau. But when it comes to the kingdom coming, the birth, you remember that Esau and Jacob came out crying and struggling. Esau strives for dominion over Jacob. And again, many Americans think that Esau is some camel jockey in the Middle East. That's more Ishmael. Esau's a lot closer to home, and Esau's my brother. And it says in the Torah, you're to love the Edomite. So when the lost tribes return to Israel, a remnant of Edom will return with them. So we've got to learn to love. Because love is the answer. And I don't mean in a sort of smoke a peace pipe sort of way. I mean according to His word. In Genesis 25:23 we read, And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Who is the elder? And who is the younger? So, if Jacob is here in America, where will the elder be? Serving his brother? He'll be here too. And it's the same in Australia. So, we need to understand this because the lost tribes are about to return. And you remember that when Israel returned to the land, who opposed them? Esau. He didn't attack them, but a descendant of Esau called Amalek did. And where did he attack them? From behind. And he attacked the weakest of them. Remember the Jews in Europe, they stayed behind. Who attacked them? It was Amalek. And the Jews say that the Nazis were Amalek. And I totally agree. I'm not saying every single one of them were a descendant. I'd say the bulk of them are. But a tree is known by its fruit. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. I don't get apples from orange trees, and I don't get oranges from apple trees. So, by their fruit you shall know them. So as it's time for the lost tribes to return, Esau will oppose it, and Amalek will attack. It's been the way in the past and it will be this way again. And Amalek is able to do this because of the wickedness in the camp, because of our complaining. And I've been a shocker for this when I don't understand what the Lord's doing in my life. And I complain to Him. And there's an Amalek within us, our flesh. And we need to deal with it. God help me, Father. Jacob was promised in Genesis 27:29, "Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee." And regarding Esau, we read in verse 40, "And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother." So Esau is serving his brother here by the sword. "And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion," when you've built up your military-industrial complex. That's my words. "That thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck." See, Esau's trusting in his stuff and in his physical weapons. You know, Israel came out of Egypt armed, but they didn't come out by arms, but by the power of God. So we're going to come out of America and return to the Holy Land in stages, and we're going to come out armed, but not by arms. So keep your muskets handy, but don't trust in them. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart. And lean not unto thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. So, a spiritual awakening is already beginning, but not the final outpouring. It is concentrated in the USA, but extends worldwide. It is also a Sodom and Gomorrah generation that shall be judged. Only a remnant of the lost tribes will be saved, and I'll give you some scriptures for this shortly. The breakup of America in World War III will lead to the lost tribes remnant moving to the North Country, as I understand it, because they're going to be brought out of the North Country. They have to be there. The North Country will be a place where we can come together as a nation. Before we meet our Jewish brethren, we've got to get on the same page on many things. They've got to draw towards us, and we've got to return to the Hebrew language and to a deeper understanding of His Word. Other nations where the lost tribes also reside, like Australia and New Zealand, will also fall apart. And New Zealand is on a fault line between two tectonic plates. And I don't want to annoy the Lord in New Zealand. It's a beautiful country, but He just needs to move those plates a little bit, and our country falls into the sea. Once regathered to the North Country, the house of Israel will come together as a nation with Hebrew as their language. And this is inferred. It doesn't say that it will happen there, but I'm inferring that we come out of the North Country, so we've got to get there. We're awakening now, and already we're seeing the earth begin to shake. And that process will continue until the lost tribes come together in a process. You notice that skin, the sinews come together, the bones rattle, the sinews come together in the Valley of Dry Bones vision. So it's a process, and it's going to take time. And I think things are quickening. The North Country will be where we return to our Hebraic culture and government. In America, we have some form of government, but when we return to the land, it's going to be not a republic. It's going to be a kingdom. It's more like the British model. The very thing that the people in America got away from, we're returning back to. It's a kingdom. But it's a kingdom based on a constitution called the Bible, the Torah. And the king is to write a copy of the law and to follow it. If we have a good king, we've got a good government. If we've got a bad king, we're in trouble. In this country, it's a democracy, but you've got a bad king, Pharaoh. And I wouldn't be at all surprised, even though he's from Kenya or something, I wouldn't be surprised if that man's roots go all the way back to the Pharaohs. And He's a snake and he's a shrewd operator, and he's God's man on Pharaoh's throne. And I don't want to come against the New World Order, but I want to stay away from them as much as possible. If they tell me to do something that's not in the book, I can't follow them. I'm saying, sorry, I follow the God of Israel, and I can't give you what is God's. I'll give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And one day Israel will give him the sharp end of the sword. Until that happy day, I want to keep my head down as much as possible. And I know that people are suffering under unjust laws, and that's going to increase. And we really need one another. And there's a time to stand up to what's wrong, and there's a time to walk away. And a wise man knows the difference. Some people come against government in a right way. It's God's in it. Sometimes people come against it, God's in it, but they're suffering. And some people come against the government and they're whacked on the head because God wasn't in it. So we've got to hear the voice of the Lord and know which way the wind is blowing. And all of the stuff that's against us is secretly for us and teaching us to walk with the Lord. So as the pressure comes on, it's going to squeeze the olives and get that oil running that goes down Aaron's head, down his beard, and down the hem of his garments. So the very things that are against us are secretly for us, and the pressure will force us together. And we're going to come together as communities on the hills and mountains in America and wherever else we're scattered in Australia. We're going to come together under duress. And it's the only way to get God's people together at the moment. Thankfully, we didn't come here today in duress. So I'm really, really pleased about that. So I think, how are people for concentration? I could do one more, or we could do that later. How are people? Do people want to break and ask questions, or do we want to do one more section and stop then? Breaking questions now?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yep. Okay, we'll stop it now. Can we stop that and restart it?
Do you need